Hello, Julie Barkus here, and joining me is my co-host and Get Connected, Mr. Michael Tasner. And we are so excited to be here with you today and help you take your childcare business success to a whole new level. How's it going, Michael?
Everything is wonderful here. How's your week going? And you had a little fun vacation time in there, and
I did. Yeah, I
enjoy
actually
the great weather
on an ATV, and we thought about going tubing with the girlfriends, but the river was too high and too fast in Wisconsin, so we didn't get to do that. But we did spend the day at the lake just swimming, and I saw one of the coolest things. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this or if any of our listeners have, but it was a convertible car that was actually like a boat in the water. I'm not sure if you saw my post on Facebook.
Yeah, I did. So there's, it's in Disney Springs in Orlando. They have a restaurant that does that. But we've never done it because I'm always with my family of 4 other kids and a wife. So there's not, I think the boat fits like maybe 4 people or 5. So
yeah, it's a cute little thing. And at first I was like, I didn't think it went on land as well. But then when I was researching it, everybody's like, oh yeah, that goes in the land or on land and in the water. Like,
yeah, those are really neat.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was one of the coolest things that I saw over the weekend. How about you? Any new adventures?
No, it was a quiet weekend. Had some rain here. Finally, we haven't had rain in a couple of weeks, so got some rain and just caught up on some movies and reading and all that good stuff. So quiet weekend.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, if you're joining us, please say hello. And Michael and I will be joining you every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, which is 2 o'clock Eastern. And if you're having successes, please share with me the successes that you're having. And I know people have been messaging me saying, I implemented that strategy that you and Michael talked about, and it worked. And I can't even believe the results that I'm getting. So if you've missed any of our past shows, please go to my business page or Michael's business page and just scroll down, and you'll be able to find all the past episodes, and you'll be able to use those as your self-study course, because we're giving you really concrete strategies that you can implement and run with and transform your success. And our clients, even in the midst of a pandemic, are having fantastic success with what we teach. And we want the same for you. And that's why we're here doing this show, to really help you out during this time. And
definitely. Yeah, I mean, and today's no exception. So today we're going to kind of talk about paid traffic, and in particular Facebook, and we'll talk audiences and kind of strategies and all of that good stuff. So we'll share some good nuggets, some success stories, some pitfalls, and some things to look out for as well. So we're going to bring you lots of fun value. And as Julie said, as always, say hello to us. If you've got some questions, please feel free to throw them on here as we continue rolling. And we look forward to a great episode today.
Yeah, and share the show. And and today I'm fascinated by today's topic because it's one of Michael's areas of expertise, and it's something that causes a lot of confusion to people. And it's Facebook ads and other paid advertising. But Facebook ads in particular, it's a thing of should I or shouldn't I? Because you could be using Facebook ads for staff to attract new staff. You can also be using Facebook ads to be attracting new clientele. And Michael's going to give us some secret sauce to making that work. And are you seeing a lot of your clients right now really plugging into Facebook?
Definitely. I would say 75, 80+%. I would say the only ones that are not using Facebook ads, a lot of them, it's been a personal choice. So there's been some things with the whole boycott Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So I've had a few people that have.
We don't use Facebook anymore. Yeah.
So that's what so we obliged. But usually I would say 9 times out of 10, when a center comes to us and says, we want more enrollments, and we're going to backtrack in a minute, and we'll talk about kind of what do you do before that, and how do you know who you're targeting. So there's a lot more stuff that goes into it rather than just throwing up an ad. But if you were to say, Michael, Julie, I mean, how do we drive more enrollments? And if you've settled on, okay, we want to kind of do it on demand. And that really is one of the things that I love most just about paid traffic in general, is that it is an on-demand tactic. Yep. So if you need some more enrollments, you can kind of turn up the faucet a little bit, and you can kind of ratchet up that budget. And if you get full, I wouldn't advise you to turn the ads off, which we can also talk about today. Just got off with a center that they've got 2 locations, and one of them is full. And their question was, so what happens after we fill the second location? Like, do we stop? Do we pause your services? Like, what happens? And we can kind of talk talk through that of what do you do when you're full. So there's a lot of different variables that go into this, but I wanted to kind of take a step back and kind of give you and talk through with Julie kind of some of the steps that, I mean, as an agency, that we're doing it obviously on behalf of our clients. And if you're able to do some of this stuff on your own as well, I'll try and keep this kind of teaching level. So I'm not going like so detailed on like anything too crazy, but
Right.
we'll also make sure that there are a couple of things that could make or break the difference of an ad that works or
and I know when I started diving into Facebook ads, and when we launched our t-shirt line, it was like, what? I mean, you think it's so simple, right? I mean, what's the big deal? And it really kind of is simple, but then there are some things that can just totally catch you up and stop you in your tracks and go, oh goodness, I don't know what to put here, so I don't think I'm going to do anything. And then you just kind of get stalled with the process. And that's something that you help move your clients through, right? So you're actually managing the Facebook ads, or are you just advising?
So we're doing all of it. So we don't advise them. They're basically it's like, okay, Michael, this is what we're looking for. You guys go and make it happen. So that's kind of normally, and I say this with love, but normally it's not in the owner's, the director's best interest to be. It's just not your core competence. And the advantage of listening to and kind of taking this kind of content that we're sharing today is so that you're knowledgeable on what to ask. And if you're working with any agency, whether it's my agency, any other agencies, that you have and know some of the questions to ask, because there's one of our core values used to be, we've revised them a few times to make sure that they were more inward facing rather than outward facing. Mm-hmm. We still share them openly, but when I had drafted the core values initially, I was kind of thinking of all of our clients and didn't draft them really based on the true spirit of our company. So we literally just last week finished revising those and getting some fun posters and things like that designed. But one of them was no magic shows. And that core value really just is all about being transparent with data and not kind of hiding the truth. I mean, if something isn't working, you really don't need to sugarcoat it. You'll simply say, it's not working. And even though we're doing this all day, every day, and I mean, managing millions of dollars of ad spend, there's times when Facebook might not work as well as we want. But the beautiful thing with buying traffic or buying attention, buying eyeballs, is that there's so many different places. But if you were to put me on the spot and say, where would I start? Where should I start? A lot of people think to start with Google. Mm-hmm. And Google's is a great platform. But a lot of times you want to start with a smaller budget. So Facebook is usually the place that we always start. Again, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's the first place that we go. And the reason behind that is the level of targeting that you can do on Facebook versus any other platform is second to none. So before you think about running any kind of ads or having an agency run any kind of ads, the first thing that you really want to start to kind of sort out and organize, and I'm doing it as I speak. I'm actually going through a copywriting mentorship with a high-level copywriter. It's just been one of trying to go through my bucket list of like checking off some things that I've wanted to learn how to like write really great copy. So nice. His program never fit my schedule, and I just started this 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And the module that I'm on now, it is before we've even written a word of copy. It's all about human behavior and better understanding your clients, your prospects. I mean, and not just you're looking for parents of 2-year-olds and 4-year-olds that live in this neighborhood, but getting much deeper. And when I say, I guess, getting much deeper, I'm talking about what are some of the fears of those parents? What are some of the desires? What things are keeping them up at night? And it's not just the surface level stuff. So you might say, so yeah, I guess if we were looking at, we'll use child care center owners as an example. So Julie or myself, we might say, well, you want to pay yourself a bigger salary, and you want to be able to grow and make a bigger impact. So there's a lot of, I guess, the things that a lot of centers kind of share in common. You want to take more free time, but you want to start to get deeper and deeper. And you want to look at kind of the why behind it. What are some of the things that are deeper? So do you want to leave a legacy? So it is your vision to be able to kind of weed yourself out. And this is the question I literally asked a center yesterday on a strategy call. Like, what's the play here? Like, what are you looking at for the next year, 3 years, 5 years? And to find out that the only reason that she opened a second location was because she opened it near the college of her other daughter. And she's hoping that her daughter then will have that place to work at, and she could give her one daughter that location, the other daughter will get the other location, and then she wants to spend all of her time doing community service. Because they're serving kind of the underprivileged communities. And on the surface level, I could say, well, she just wants more enrollments. Like that's it. But as you start to uncover and kind of peel back the layers of the onion, or kind of start to peel things through and just start to uncover more, that data, that information, it is going to be really, really powerful. Because before, again, you start doing any advertising, you really want to know exactly who you're trying to target. And you want to start to have some of the buzzwords so that when you get ready to either write an ad copy or you're getting ready to shoot a video, for example, that it's not just a standard video of, hey, this is Michael with ABC Center. We are now enrolling for a pre-K program. We got a couple of infants. We'd love to see you. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's a surface level video.
Right.
But if you actually have that deeper demographic data and you know their desires and their fears, that you can then start to call some of these things out and really cut through the noise on a deeper level. So I would highly encourage you, and I want to pause and see, Julie, if you have any questions. But the first step is all about the right targeting. And we'll talk through kind of what are some of the different things that you can do in Facebook, but it's getting that information on paper, the dreamy types of families that you want to attract, and just being able to analyze those families that you have and say, well, what makes, like, why is this family amazing and why is this family average to good? And you might say, well, this family is amazing because they have 3 kids. They're referring us, they pick up their kids up. So you go through, again, some surface level stuff, but maybe it's this family is amazing because once a month they send the teacher a letter of appreciation. And you know that they're grateful to have a place that they can call home for their kids, for example. So you want to start to look at those things, and you're just literally jotting down. It's very similar to personas, where you've got, okay, Sarah is one of your personas, and Steve is another one, and Betty's another. So it's kind of having those personas. But if you just start to dive into Facebook and you just throw up an ad and say, let's just target parents that live within 10 miles of our center, you're going to miss out on the connection, and it's going to fall. It's just going to almost fall in deaf ears, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're saying that we really need in our Facebook ad to be speaking to people on a deeper level in terms of what are their fears around childcare, so that our ad is just really speaking to people, and they know that when they read that ad, that, hey, you're talking to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just the targeting in the ad, it's that content, and we're going to talk through that content. But I love to have a really good picture in my mind of who I'm aiming to attract. So once I have that down, you can start with one particular family, for example, or one parent, and you start there. And you then kind of start to go through the process with Facebook. So when you're going through the process, Facebook is going to allow you to do a whole slew of different types of targeting. So the easiest ones to think of are things like, let's run this ad to moms that live within a certain geographic area. Now, one thing, it's probably one of the top 5 questions that I get asked is, Michael, what radius do you suggest? Like, how do we want a mile around our center, 3 miles, 10 miles, 20? And it's one of those initially unknowns until I kind of give you the easy way to think about it. So what I would like you to do is to take all of your past enrollments, and you can literally plot them on almost a blank kind of Google map, and then it's going to start to show little pinpoints. And leveraging Google and leveraging tools like, Google Sheets and Excel, what it'll start to do is you can get latitude and longitude, and there's a lot of, I guess, technical things. But what you're going to very quickly start to find, you're going to notice some trends. You're going to notice that maybe, let's just say it's 3.5 miles, you have like 50%, you've got a really nice cluster that's 3.5 miles away, and they're in a couple of particular neighborhoods. And then you're going to find that you probably have a cluster that might even be a little bit closer. And then you're going to find you probably have a cluster that's a little bit larger. So maybe it's 7 miles, 8 miles, even a little bit longer or wider. But until you start to map that, it's all a guessing game. And it varies drastically based on where you're located in the US or the world. It also varies based on the type of center that you are. So we have found statistically that if you're a faith-based center or a Montessori center or something that's, for lack of a better phrase, more specialized, that families will drive. We've seen them drive as many as 12 to 14 miles. But if it's kind of traditional childcare, traditional daycare, we found that it typically is going to top out at about 6 to 8 miles. But then if you're in New York City, for example, if you're targeting 14 miles, you could have a population of like 50 million people. Some of the targeting there might be literally a mile or a half a mile around your location. So the only way to start to get that is to leverage data. And a lot of centers that I've seen that try to run their own ads, they make the mistake of just picking like 10 miles, 20 miles, because Facebook will guide you in their tool, but they don't have any of that data about you. Or what they'll do is they'll run an ad and say, run this ad to people that like our Facebook page, for example. And just because they like your Facebook page, that doesn't really mean anything. So you really want to look at that radius based on past enrollments and current enrollments. And you can look at your leads, but you might start to notice some trend with the leads. Did you get a lot of leads that were 11 miles away and none of those leads converted? Well, then you know that your radius is going to be a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating to me what you're saying about, really looking at the other things, the fears and that. But I'm wondering, once you have that information, you've got those avatars really well defined, or who those dreamy clients are, can you refine those in the searches that you do or the targeting that you do with these ads? So let's say we have a mom and we find out mom is an entrepreneur. Are we also putting in she's a part of entrepreneur groups too? Or are we still sticking to the basics in terms of what age and how many miles? So as you find out more about your clientele, and we find out, hey, 50% of our people are entrepreneurs, do we want to target entrepreneurs as part of that Facebook ad?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So I'm going to give you two different answers.
Okay.
So one of the challenges with Facebook, and it's just kind of paid traffic in general, is that depending on where you're located, the amount of parents that you're targeting might be a little bit too small. So you might you might say, okay, Facebook, I want to run ads to people so we always start wide. And we start wide and then we continue to narrow as we see fit. But what you do is you start to narrow based on data. So we might say, Facebook, let's run ads to anyone that is between the ages of, and I'm even going to go young, we'll say 18 and 45. And again, that's where all of that data of analyzing your current enrollments, analyzing the families that you love working with. What are some more of the demographics? So we talked earlier about what are some of the fears, what are some of their desires, but start to look at some of their demographics. Are they middle class, upper class? Like, what are some of the different traits that they have? You might find that you work with a lot of grandparents, that the grandparents are paying for the childcare. And that's going to come in handy when we run another ad in just a minute. So it's starting off a little bit more broad, and I typically will start very broad of running an ad to men and women of a pretty wide range. And then I will leverage some of the demographics with Facebook and say that they are a parent, or they liked a page about parenting, or liked a page about kids. So it gives you some of the different things that you can start to layer on top. But I usually will start pretty broad. And then I'll start to run that ad. And when I'm saying run the ad, and this is getting a little bit in the weeds, but there's a lot of different ways that you can start to drive attention. So you can drive attention by having someone filling out a lead form, which is what we typically recommend. You can have someone click on a little button and call your center. You can have them visit your website, which we never advise. You can have them do a whole slew of different things, but usually what I'm looking for is they see your ad, they click on a little button, and they fill in their contact information. And then from there, you've got to chase them down, follow up, send them text messages, and you got to work the leads.
Yeah.
But the key to all of this is initially starting off with knowing who are the people that you're actually focused on targeting, having some of those different words and things like that. We can talk through copy. And then starting to run your demographic targeting to be pretty broad. And when I say, again, broad, the first ad is usually pretty generic, and it'll call out some of those fears or desires, but it's not going to call out moms or dads or it's going to be a little bit more of a generic ad. And the goal is we just want to put it out there and start to see, can we start to get some people raising their hands? And with everything, you want to be making data-driven decisions. So we might put the ad out there and say, let's just run it to all the moms and dads and grandparents that are in the area. And we're going to say, based on data, we're going to run it to 8 miles. And Facebook's going to tell you this is how many people fit that criteria. And if your criteria is really small, or you might only have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, which might sound like a lot, but you can invest $500 to reach all those people a few times during the month. So I was just running some ads for our business, and I think that our people that we were targeting saw our ad like 9 times, which is way too much for like $1,000. So the ability to reach these people is pretty darn easy. And that's why you want to start off a little bit more broad. And then as you start to see from Facebook, it's going to give you the data. Okay, you're getting leads from moms that are on average 25 to 40. So you're going to start to get that data of seeing who's actually most interested in your center. And you can then start to refine that targeting. And then you can run very, very specific ads. So take a sip of water here because I'm talking too much already.
You are. Lots of golden nuggets coming our way. And if you're here tuning in, you're using Facebook ads, give us an, oh yeah, Julie, oh yeah, Michael, I'm using Facebook ads. Well, let us know that it is something that you are using. And if you've been contemplating using ads, but haven't quite yet, bit the bullet, let us know that as well, because there might be some fears that we can help you overcome when it comes to your Facebook ads. And one thing that I would really love for Michael to share, I don't know about everybody tuning in, is why Facebook ads? Why should we be doing Facebook? And I don't know about you, but I am like seeing right now boatloads of ads, people popping up all over the place on my feed in Facebook as an expert in this, an expert in that, because so many people right now are getting a huge bang for their buck through Facebook ads. And there's a lot of them that are popping up. So I think it'd be really great to hear from your perspective, Michael, why now is the time to really get yourself on Facebook, and why we should be using that and tapping into it?
No, that's another great question. So, and I've mentioned this on previous episodes, and I just was literally talking through this concept with my business coach a couple hours ago. And he said, well, what are some of the challenges in working with childcare owners or childcare centers? And I said, one of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, is just everything relating to money and budgets and just kind of better understanding kind of marketing return on investment. So one of the challenges is that most of you are not doing any paid traffic at this very moment in time. Mm-hmm. And if you are, you might be spending or investing a few $100s a month on Google. And he said, well, and he asked me the question, well, why do they not invest more? And I don't think that it's that you don't have the budgets. I think that it's not understanding kind of return on ad spend. And everything to me is a marketing equation, a marketing math equation. I call it marketing math. So it's if you can put $1,000 into Facebook ads and you can start to spit out, let's just use simple numbers. If you can spit out 10 leads, 5 tours, and 3 enrollments, just as a simple example, you invested $1,000, you got 3 enrollments, which on the low side would be worth $600-700 a month to you. On the high side, it could be worth $1,000, $1,200, even $1,500 a month. But the piece that you're forgetting is that, again, that enrollment is not worth, even if it's the low end, $600. That enrollment is worth, at minimum, based on the data, minimum typically 20 months of enrollments. So that one new perspective or one new family that converted is worth, again, at minimum to you $12,000 over 2 years. So $600 a month, 20 months. So when you start to think about it that way, it starts to make the math just really start to make a lot more sense. That if I could put in $1,000, $2,000 a month, for example, and I could spit out leads that create tours, that create enrollments, to me, it's game over in a good way. But unfortunately, we're going to do some videos, and I bought a really great domain, coldtraffic.com, to kind of teach a little bit more of like what is cold, like, because the piece that a lot of the centers don't understand is not just the math, it's they have to chase these leads. Like, these are not leads that one of your existing parents referred. This is someone that saw your ad on Facebook. They were probably browsing because they were posting kids of their picture, or they were playing Candy Crush, if that's still even around, or they didn't come on Facebook to look for a childcare center, most likely.
Right.
And they happened to see your ad that caught their attention because it hopefully was a well-written ad that you leverage some of their fears or desires, and you have some really great imagery, or even better, you did a video that catches their attention and you leverage some of that same content. And then they fill that particular form out, but you got to chase them a little bit. People are busy. And again, now with everything just as it is, people's minds are just, I know that at least mine is, and I barely even know what day it is half the time lately. So it's like,
I know, it's like picking up the phone. What day is it?
Yeah, and it's like, so you can't assume that if they fill this form out that they're then going to magically, schedule a tour the same day. They're going to come in, they're going to enroll. So it takes some work. But
this is where they say the fortune is really in the follow-up.
Exactly.
True. And I once heard some statistics that said that, people need, like, if you're calling somebody, you'll need to reach out to them like 7 times just to get through to them in person, where you could actually have a conversation. So don't think even because you call somebody once or you call them twice, oh, I tried. Not a good lead, something happened. No, it really takes a little bit more than that to be consistent with the follow-up so that you can actually get through and get to the place where you have a conversation.
Exactly. And it's...
Don't give up.
And it's interesting because, I just was pulling up the metrics because we just ran these metrics recently. And it was, I believe, the average amount of follow-ups that were needed to close some of these enrollments was about 7.4.
Yeah.
So it's text, it's calls, it's emails, it's you wait another day or two, you call, you text, you email, and then if they don't enroll right away, you put them on a nurture sequence. So, but to go back to your question, and I kind of went off on a slight tangent about the math, but whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, if that still stays around, YouTube, I like to say that I'm platform agnostic. And what I mean by that is that there are definitely some centers that they're getting better results through Google AdWords than they are with Facebook, or some centers that Pinterest is performing much better than Yelp. The only platform that we personally are not raving fans of is Yelp. And that probably is another story or a topic for a different day. But if you Google anything about Yelp complaints or Yelp scams, you'll start to see some of the things that I'm talking about. Is that it's a little shady, some of the stuff that's going on over at Yelp. So I would encourage you to pick that as the last resort platform. But with Facebook, it just is, it's the big behemoth, and it's the level of targeting that you can do. So with Google, the big difference, and this is a really critical point for people to understand. So with Facebook, you're kind of distracting them. So it's distraction marketing, where you're aiming to have a good ad, a good video, to grab their attention, to distract them, to get their contact information.
You have to say, hey, here I am. Come
Exactly.
out. And that's what Facebook is. I think about Facebook like this big black hole, right? We get on there and we're just scrolling through our screen and seeing what pulls us in. And to me, it's kind of like, what kind of big black hole do I get pulled into from what my interests are? And I agree. And we did the same thing with t-shirts, where we started putting the t-shirts from our Always Essential lineup. And it was just kind of like, oh, interruption or disruption, like right there, there's a shirt. Oh, they never thought they needed an Always Essential shirt, but it pops up, grabs their attention, and there we go.
Exactly. So that platform is the distraction platform. Google was completely different. Now, the advantage of Google versus Facebook is that if someone is typing in child care center near me, pre-K near me, Montessori school, they have, it's called intent. They have search intent. So they're pretty highly qualified. However, there just is a lot more, how can I phrase this? There's just a lot more stuff on the back end to make sure that you actually capture the lead the right way, that you have a really good landing page. So the reason you don't want to send traffic to your website is that you don't know what they're going to do. They could come to the website, they can click on 19 different links. You need to be able to track all this stuff to see, similar to what I said earlier of marketing math. You want to know if you input X into this system, that after a certain amount of time, what kind of comes out on the other end. And again, it's game over in a good way once you start to nail down those numbers of, you put in $1,000, $2,000 a month, and here are the numbers that you're continuing to hit. You really shouldn't be turning this stuff off.
Yeah.
And you can scale it back. So I know one of the pieces that I mentioned earlier was, what do you do when you're full? You can scale it back, but I want you to literally have a wait list around the block. Mm-hmm. Because we're seeing, and I'd love to hear kind of what you're seeing, we're definitely seeing centers that normally are always full, that are not necessarily full right now. And God forbid if something else happens, or who knows with all this crazy COVID stuff, if something turns again, I want you to have just this gigantic wait list. So if you all of a sudden lose 50% of your families, that you have a huge wait list that you can at least go and start to get some traction with. So I am never a fan of just completely stopping things. And the other way that I need you to think about it is, you've got to look at this from an investment standpoint. So let's say that you invested $2,000 a month for 3 months and you got 10 enrollments. So those 10 enrollments, you literally have covered your entire marketing budget, and you're making a few $1,000s every single month if you're on the low side. So your marketing budget's already paid for. So why would you say, well, let's stop the marketing, let's save that $2,000, and then if we need it again, we'll turn it back on. And it's a rookie mistake, because you just never know in this industry what could happen. All of a sudden a director leaves and you lose 20 enrollments. Something happens with the teacher, you get some bad press, half your families are gone. Like, you need to be keeping your name out there. You need to have that brand recognition, because someone else is going to one up you. I mean, there's a lot of centers that are hungry from awareness and marketing, like they're eager to get their name out there, that, I mean, they will pass you by. And it's definitely the time is now.
And I always I remember, I don't know, I'm sure you know Zig Ziglar, but I remember hearing Zig speak years and years and years ago, and he was a top salesman for Tupperware and then went into sales coaching. But he used the analogy, and many of you have probably heard this, or maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, about the pump, one of those old-fashioned water pumps at the park. And I don't know if you remember it, but I remember them, and occasionally run into one where you've actually got to prime the pump so that the water starts coming out. He says you just can't go up to the pump and go, oh, pump and all this water comes out. You've got to work it, work it, work it, work it, work it. And he called it in sales priming the pump, so that when you need the flow is there. And too often, especially in our world of instant gratification, we're like, oh, I'm going to push the button on and I'm going to get a whole flow of what I need. But we need to be priming the pump consistently. And sometimes, there's a lead time, and Michael probably has some great statistics about this, but there's a lead time of weeks or sometimes months or sometimes years before people are like, okay, I'm ready now. I'm going to become a client. I'm going to enroll with you. So there's always that time of priming the pump. Remember those old-fashioned pumps? Do you remember those, Michael?
I do. No, I used to have a cottage on a lake, and we had well water, and had the pump would, like, you'd live or die based on the pump. Is it working? Did it not prime? Is there air in the line?
Yeah.
All that. Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah. So when Zig talked about it, and you can probably look it up on YouTube, him telling the story, and he told it brilliantly about, how you just got to really get in there and start priming it so that when you need the water is there, so that your flow is there when you need it to be. And that's what Michael's saying is we just can't expect like, oh, we're full, we're good. Okay, let's go. You always want to be working it. You always want to be filling your bucket, so to speak.
Love it. No, I think that's a good analogy to think about it. And even before we started talking about kind of audiences and learning their fears, and you can do this by interviewing a lot of your existing families. So, I mean, that's another topic for a different day as well. But the easiest way to kind of learn some of those is just to interview them. Why did you choose our center? Well, we needed somewhere to go. Well, why? Tell me a little why. Well, and you ask the whole why a couple of times, and my career is extremely important, but I wanted to make sure that my son had a great place where I could also check on the cameras. I connected with the teachers. My parents liked they secret shop. So you start to uncover a lot more of the elements. But if you live or die based on numbers, and if you're living or dying based on enrollments, and that's the big challenge right now with a lot of centers, that we don't have enough enrollments to cover payroll and cash flow and to pay myself a salary and to pay the lease and things like that. You really have, a few different decisions. You're at that crossroads, and you can either dig in and really build a plan and execute the plan, or you can kind of just try and kind of, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of go, I guess, business as usual, but it's never a good spot to be in.
Right.
You've got to make sure that you're putting enough to just grow your brand, and you're putting enough efforts and resources. You have to be allocating these resources to be doing the marketing. Like it's not if you build it and they will come anymore. It hasn't been like that for years. There are so many franchises that are popping up left and right. I know there used to be a couple of big franchise brands and high-end brands. Kinder Kids and Goddard and Primrose, and there's obviously a lot of other brands, and I'm just seeing new franchises popping up. And a lot of these have some pretty big budgets, because these people are often more of the investor mindset, and they're an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. I just talked to an attorney this morning, and he looked at it from an investment standpoint, and he's throwing big dollars. And I'm not saying that they can just simply outspend you on everything. And there's obviously experience comes into play, but if some of these centers, if they've got their brand more front and center, and they're doing all the community events, and they're showing up on Facebook and Google and YouTube, it's going to be tough to start to compete with some of these centers. And I'm definitely starting to see the bar more quickly than it has been kind of rising, of centers knowing that they have to kind of change some stuff up. Like a lot of them used to, and I'm digressing on your question of like why Facebook. So a lot of centers used to rely heavily on like open houses. Mm-hmm. People are still gun shy to come to an open house that is going to have 30 to 50 other families, for example. And it's going to be tough. So they're starting to look at, well, how else can we kind of do this digitally? So right. If I go back to your question of, why now? That was kind of a lot of it. Of you need to be up leveling the bar. You need to make sure that you have a steady stream of prospects so that you're always priming that pump.
Yeah.
But with Facebook, it's that level of targeting that it's direct response. So you can put out content and put out some ads and start to see some response, typically in a couple of days.
Yeah.
I've talked about, and I won't re-talk about it today, but I've talked about the 3x3 strategy where you're putting out videos and short videos. So you can continue to execute that stuff. But what I wanted to focus on today was just putting up ads to the right people, having compelling languaging, and driving direct responses. So you're driving leads that you can kind of nurture and start to warm up, because that just starts to build your confidence. It starts to then build your cash flow, obviously. And when you have, those kinds of resources and things like that, you can obviously make smarter business decisions.
Yeah. And I want to say also, don't be afraid. I know we're using the word competition, but don't be afraid of that, because even in Facebook ads, it is an amazing opportunity to position yourself for the unique program that you have. There's ways that you can share your vision in those Facebook ads, share your story, so that you're standing out just as much, if not more, than the guy next door. So don't let the word competition scare you, but really think about, how do I tap into my own uniqueness to really project that through the ads that I put out there? And that's what Facebook gives you the opportunity to do, because you could pick a picture for your ad that's totally unique to you and to your vision, or a little video clip that's unique to you and your vision, that it's like, wow, that's pretty cool, that people are going to connect with and relate to and want to come and enroll with you.
Oh, that's an incredible point, because yes, there's a lot of competition, but I will tell you that most of these people are lazy. And what I mean by that is, if it's a franchise brand, for example, often it's the franchisor running it and they're duplicating ad. They're not using unique content, and they're not using unique pictures.
Yeah.
I see it every day. So if you're taking a little bit of extra time to do video, you will be, let's say that there are 10 different ads, and usually there's not going to be 10, but let's say there's even 5 different centers that are near you that are competing. Maybe one of those 5 are going to have a video, but the chances are there's going to be 0, because they're going to take the easy road. They're going to leverage the Facebook stock images. They're going to type in kids or Montessori. They're going to type in a keyword. They're going to grab a couple of the images and they're going to slap it up there. So if you start to, as Julie said, if you start to really be your unique self and talk about those things that we've talked about it in many of our past episodes, of the things that make you unique and make you stand out, the blueberry muffins that are there every single day, and that you're greeted with a friendly smile, so you know that you can have a productive day at work, knowing that your children or your child is well taken care of. And it's just what are those different things that are making you unique?
Yeah.
The only thing, go ahead, please.
So it's not just really, who's got the most ad spend, who's got the most money that they're going to be throwing in their Facebook ads. It's about, who are you targeting and how are you grabbing their attention?
Exactly. And you can do that through video. The only other thing that I wanted to point out on today's, and I see 1 or 2 questions that I'll answer in just a second. The only kind of ad content or ad copy that you really want to think about at this point in time is having to emphasize safety, security, and how you're sanitizing. And I still want those unique videos, but I want you to maybe add in a couple of seconds, and I don't want it to be the focus, but it can be added in as a couple of seconds on the video, for example. And oh, by the way, of course, we're taking every single safety measure and more to ensure that your children and your families are safe. So that definitely, if you look at fears and desires and kind of languaging, that is obviously on almost everyone's mind, especially with the media. If these families, which they most likely are, watching something or listening to something, they're definitely in a fear mindset.
Yeah. So
you want to make sure that you're not, I still want you to be showing what makes you unique, but I also want you to acknowledge that, because if 5 other centers, if they're only doing videos on now enrolling, get a discount, and here are all our safety measures. If they're only doing that and the other 4 do the exact same thing, I want you to, again, be unique and show off your center and what makes you different, and you and your teachers and all of that. But also, again, just the elephant in the room is obviously COVID. So you don't have to make it the focus of your ad. It can be done on the follow-ups. It can be done on the phone calls when you're kind of jumping into that. And you might say, this conversation is all about getting to know you and your child, but I did want to kind of give you this little tidbit before we jump in, just to kind of put your mind at ease. So there's obviously different ways to do it, but just to make sure that you're aware of that.
Yeah. And I also think that if you have a sense of humor, if that's one of your, things that's incorporated into your center, an ad is a perfect time to show that sense of humor in some way, shape, or form, either with the picture that you use or the video or the way the copy is written. So just make it uniquely you. And I think that you're going to be attracting the right people with those ads.
So we've got 2 questions here. I can't believe 50 minutes has already flown by.
Ooh, I know.
These always fly. So the first question.
What happens when you get into your sweet spot, right?
Yeah, definitely. I could geek out on Facebook ads all day. So the first question is, what should I expect in terms of number of leads? So it's a little bit of a loaded question, but I typically say that you want to be budgeting anywhere between $100 and $150. And I say that because I've seen leads come in at much less. I've seen leads come in at a little bit higher, but I'm going to make the assumption that you're working with an agency like ours or a different agency. And what I'm looking at is the cost per lead where it's kind of all in. So like you're all in terms of not just the Facebook cost, but the agency cost as well to manage it, set it up, and execute it for you. And what's been interesting is that, some of the centers that I've seen trying to execute it on their own, I've looked at some of these campaigns and they might have invested $1,000 and gotten 3 leads, for example. We could have done the same campaign, maybe invested half the budget and the other half would have went to us, but they would have got 10 leads, for example. So, it varies based on location. Montessori centers, the leads tend to be a little bit higher priced because we're usually adding other levels of targeting. So usually, not always, a lot of the Montessori centers that we work with are much more expensive. So we might add another layer of targeting where we're only looking for income above $100,000 a year, for example. So as you start to get more and more specific of those types of leads, your lead cost is going to go up. But again, if you start to think about everything like a math equation, if you're still investing, $2,000 and it's spitting out an enrollment or two, that enrollment or two, it's not just, oh, geez, we invested $2,000, we got 1 enrollment that's paying us $1,000. Well, month 2, they're paying you $1,000, and month 3, and they're going to refer people to you, and they could be there for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So you have to look at the longevity and that long-term value of the enrollment, yes, and make those decisions. But historically speaking, $100 to $150 per lead. So if you're investing $1,500 to $2,000 per month, ideally you're going to be getting 15 to 20 or so leads is what we have historically seen. And again, that number is all in with having an agency helping you do that as well. So I'm factoring in kind of traditional agency budgets.
Okay. And that's good information to know too. I agree with you. Often we look at, well, what's the immediate return on this, but we're not really looking at the lifetime value of a client, let alone the referrals that can come in, let alone all the other things that will happen from that one person signing on as a client. So I think
exactly. And to be honest with you, I tend to advise the centers not even really to look at leads anymore. And I don't want them to get so caught up on the number of leads. I want them more focused on how many tours are they doing and how many enrollments are they getting. So it almost, I don't want you so focused on that monthly number that you're paying, because I found that it just creates some unneeded tension. It creates, it's still often just seen as an expense of like, how do I eliminate that? I don't like that reoccurring. And it's usually because you haven't had that investment before.
Yeah.
But if you start to look at, well, geez, I just added 8 enrollments in 3 months at X amount of money, and they're going to be here for a while, then it starts to make much more financial sense for you to kind of continue to do this. So yes, you want to be looking at leads, but I'm more interested in looking at how many tours are you doing off of that, and then how many enrollments. So you might find you only get 15 or 20 leads over a few months, but you end up doing 10 tours and you enroll 7. Like it's all just analyzing the math and looking at what's driving you the best return.
Yeah. So can I ask you, Michael, so what are some of the biggest fears that you've heard people share with you about doing paid advertising, and how have you helped them overcome those fears?
Great question. So I would say the biggest question that I typically get is everyone, when they hear how much I suggest they invest, almost everyone says it's expensive. And to me, it's a mindset shift. So I have to train them on lifetime value and show them that this is how it's going to work. The other piece that we just rolled this out 2 weeks ago is that we're actually guaranteeing enrollments, which we've never done before. So we're saying, whatever you're investing with us, within the first 90 days, we will guarantee you enough enrollments to cover your marketing budget. So even if you get rid of us after 3 months, which hopefully they don't, that
but what a fantastic guarantee.
What was that, sorry?
I said, what a fantastic guarantee.
Yeah, and we used to do a lead guarantee because a lot of the centers, like they still need to overcome the fear mindset. So usually it seems to be too expensive. I'm not sure it's going to work. A lot of times it's my demographic isn't on Facebook, and that one is easily squashed by just going into Facebook. And I mean, everyone and their cousin is on Facebook. I mean, it's the largest platform. Almost everyone is on that platform, and it's pretty easy to reach them. So I hear that one. Or a lot of times I'll also hear, if they did have an agency before us, which isn't that often, they'll say, I tried it and it didn't work. Or I tried Google Ads and it didn't work. And usually they tried doing something and it didn't work. Or they threw $100 at a post and they boosted a post and they saw a few comments but no phone calls. Or they threw $500 a month at Google and they didn't really get too much out of it. So the stuff works 100% of the time, but it's got to be deployed successfully. I mean, it works 100% of the time when deployed successfully. So with the right ads, the right targeting, the right budgets and things like that. So a lot of times you're under investing drastically from what you can and should be. I mean, I talked to a center yesterday that had, they want to get 60 enrollments in the next 3 months. 60 enrollments in 3 months. And it's definitely doable. And we started talking kind of budgets and numbers and things like that. And well, can we do that and invest $3,000? I said, well, $3,000 a week, $3,000 a month? No, $3,000 total. And I had to, I mean, I didn't chuckle because obviously it would be rude, but I'm thinking in my head, I mean, $3,000, you want to invest $3,000 to get $50,000 a month of reoccurring income that will stay, worst case, I'll stay a year. So you want to invest $3,000 to make $50,000 a month times 10. So 3,000 to make 500,000. And it's just, again, it's that math. And I'm saying, well, it's just not, you got to be investing bigger budgets. And I'm not saying you got to invest $100,000 over 3 months, but you got to be willing to put some money up. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you suggest? Let's give people some tips for how to get ready to launch a Facebook ad campaign. So what would people do, whether they're going to start working with you or attempt to do it on their own? What would be some initial steps that they could take to really start getting themselves ready to get some really good Facebook ads out there?
Sure. So step one, again, would be getting all of your targeting dialed in. Who are you looking to go after? And that's done by analyzing your enrollments, looking at what makes them unique, what makes them dreamy clients, dreamy families. So you know who you're starting to target. What are the ages of these families? Where do they live? So you've got to get all that stuff ready to go. The second thing would be getting your assets created. So creating some videos that you can use on Facebook, going through all your pictures, finding some images that look really great that are unique to you, unique to your center. so that you have some of those assets ready. Step 3 would be working on either that video or the ad copy and just writing down, here are some of the things that make us unique, and being able to kind of speak your language, so to speak. Next step, and I'm obviously doing this impromptu, which is the way that I like to do it because it keeps me on my toes. So if you've got the research done, you've got your assets together, you've got some good demographic information, you've written some ads. From there, it's picking a daily budget. So you typically will start anywhere between $20 and $50 a day. I mean, you can start with as little as $5 a day if you really wanted. And you just start to get the ads out there. You put the images out there. I will say that not only is the ad critical that shows some uniqueness, but the other piece to it is, sorry, I lost where I should have thought I saw a comment. Thank you, Miranda, for the nice words. What was I even saying? So the uniqueness of the ad, it'll come back to me in just a second.
Yeah, you were talking about the ad budget, I believe.
So we got the ad budget, the uniqueness of the ad. Now I remembered it. You have to have some kind of offer. And get a free tour is not a compelling offer. Get free registration fee is not a compelling offer. And this one is debatable because I've had a lot of people say, well, we don't want to do an offer. I can tell you, because we've got all the data after doing this for so long, that the #1 performing ad right now is get 2 weeks free. And I don't care how you fulfill it. I'm just saying that that's the #1 ad right now. An ad like that will outperform free waived enrollment fee or 10% off. So you really want to look at what kind of offer can you combine with you being a unique center. Wow. And it's tough to not have an offer right now, really. And those are the ads that I will tell you right now, they will not perform nearly as well. You need something to not only grab their attention as to why you're unique, but put them over the edge by saying special offer. And we've tested, free Chromebooks, we've tested spa getaways, 2 weeks free, a month free, 10, like when I looked yesterday, I think we've tested just under 400 different offers. Yeah. And then we rank them of what's working the best. And then we present those to our clients and say, this is the offer we want you to run. Are you willing to do it? Oh my gosh, I don't want to give a month away for free. Okay, then we go to the #2 and kind of go down the list from there.
So right now it's 2 weeks free. And this is a huge nugget right here, right? Yeah. If you're writing your ads, to know that the #1 thing that's pulling people in is to get that free time at your center.
Yeah, and even if you're giving them, they pay for the fit. So it's not they walk in the door and they instantly get 2 weeks free. So they're signed up. Maybe they don't get the first free week until month 2 or month 3. And then a month or 2 later, they get another month. So it's not they walk in and the first month is half priced. Okay. But it typically is then staggered out. But it's just that compelling offer of get 2 weeks free. And again, it varies and there's different factors, but I can tell you that is still our #1 performing offer. We've got some centers that we've been running that offer for 3 years in a row. And all that we're changing is some of the graphics and things like that around it.
Yeah, so I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, Michael, but can you share with us some just compelling results that you've seen your clients get with Facebook ads? Because I really want to prompt our listeners into action, whether they utilize your services, get in touch with you, or they just go to Facebook, and try to put an ad together themselves and get it out there. But what was I saying?
Compelling results.
Compelling results. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. If I look at, historically what's happening, our goal is to typically drive 10 enrollments in 90 days at a minimum. And that typically is on, a modest budget, $1,500, $2,000 a month, give or take, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. But we've seen centers, one center that we just started running ads for 3 weeks ago, they've already driven 7 enrollments in 3 weeks. We usually do reactivation campaigns in tandem with the ads just to kind of jumpstart things a little bit. We had one center I'm just looking at because we have a little board. It's similar to Slack. It's called Teamwork Chat, but we have a little board called the Local Child Care Marketing Positive News Network. So this is where we're kind of sharing wins and things like that throughout the day. So we're looking at, let's see, this particular center, it's going on a month and a half. They've had 11 enrollments. So, I mean, the stuff works. I mean, once, especially if you're in an area that isn't insanely populated with a lot of other centers, you usually can, even if you don't have a ton of brand recognition, we can start to drive some leads pretty quickly. So
awesome.
Definitely works, and it can work the first month. I mean, that's the other nice thing with this paid traffic in general. I mean, even if you're doing it yourself, I mean, it should be working for you in the first month and driving phone calls.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed learning a lot about Facebook ads today. I know we've just touched the tip of the iceberg with learning about how to prep ourselves for the Facebook ads and what the number one, and if you missed it, you're gonna have to go back and re-listen to the show because Michael revealed the number one offer that you can make that will really inspire people to respond to your ad. And I think that was very powerful. So I know we're out of time. Michael, where can people get in touch with you if they want more information?
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're tuning in, Michael and myself, we do check. So leave your questions, leave your comments, and we'd be more than happy to respond. But let's hear where we can get in touch with Michael for more Facebook ad information and to really accelerate our marketing success.
Definitely. So it's localchildcaremarketing.com. You can also look me up on Facebook, shoot me a direct message. I'm more than happy to schedule what we call kind of an enrollment acceleration call. So more than happy to jump on and strategize with anyone. So what about yourself, Julie? I know you've got a lot of fun stuff as well.
Ooh, yeah. So you can find our Always Essential gear, our Always Essential t-shirts, hoodies, and more at happychildcareteam.com. And if you would like to plug into my Drive Method Masterclass, please go to, and there's a lot more videos for you on the website as well, but go to childcarebusinesssuccess.com. And I'm going to share with you a formula consisting of the word drive to really accelerate your results in terms of enrollments, in terms of happiness, in terms of the kind of staff that you want to attract to your business, to your life.
Love it. Well, I want to end with a positive quote. Do you have a quote handy anywhere, or do you want me to?
I could get one, or do you have one on lead gen?
I'm going to pull one of my.
Okay, pull one of yours.
All right. So there we go here. So I mentioned it a couple of times in the past, but I'm a big fan of Walt Disney and Disney World and all that good stuff. And one of the quotes that I've seen many, many times is there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. And I know a lot of you are just, I know things are still challenging and uncertain, but promise you, stick in there. Things will continue to improve and get better. And I appreciate you listening in. I know Julie does as well. So we're here to serve you. If we can be of any help, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and if you feel that this is really your vision and this is really your dream to make your childcare into this amazing success, you have that vision, you have that dream for a reason. Don't give up. Don't give up. Just really listen inside of yourself on how to bring it to life in a bigger way. And Michael and I are totally here to support you. And we want to see you, just like Walt Disney, right? Make all of your dreams come true. I'm Julie Barkas. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Have a good afternoon, everyone. Have a good weekend as well. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
See ya. Bye.